would actually like to turn the next question back over to Kieran and Paul, just to talk a little bit more in depth about, when you're making this choice, what are those things that you have to keep in mind when you're really choosing between one or the other? Anything about what types of changes are made between versions, what a typical release schedule might look like, what people are focusing on when those changes are made. Do you want to go ahead and start, Barry?
Both Drupal and WordPress, I think, they actually probably have quite more things in common than they have that are different. They're both basically tools that people are using to make websites. The target website that you want to build is not going to really change based on whether you're using Drupal or WordPress. You still want the same end result. You just have to choose what tools you pick to do that, whether it's something like Drupal or WordPress, or whether you build it on your own, whether you use a custom CMS, whatever. So we can look at kind of the WordPress adoption as well as the community and kind of see who has chosen to use WordPress. So the first example is that probably 90+% of the people in here raised their hand when I said who is using WordPress today. So that's a pretty good indicator of actually who is using WordPress, all of us. And I think that it's a pretty smart group we got here. So in addition to the few 50 folks in this room or whatever, we have almost another 40 million sites running on WordPress. There are 17.3, probably almost 18 million sites by now hosted on WordPress.com, and then another 21 million. Oh, I'm sorry. I got them backwards. But anyway, there are about 20 million sites, half hosted on WordPress.com, and then half hosted on various hosts around the world, whether that's shared hosts like GoDaddy or Bluehost or DreamHost, or in complex custom infrastructures like the New York Times has their own WordPress cluster. But there are 40 million sites out there. If you look at the top, I think it's 1 million domains. About 12 to 13% of those run on WordPress. So that's a pretty good example of how we kind of determine that 12 to 13% of the entire web runs on WordPress, which is a pretty huge amount. In addition to that, there's a huge community and around an ecosystem around WordPress. So you have thousands of people that are contributing to WordPress development. That's kind of split between actual core development, so people submitting tickets, patches, actually people committing to WordPress core. You have your plugin developers that are developing and contributing back open source plugins. And then you have theme developers. And on the theme side, there are thousands of themes out there. There are 1,300 free themes alone just in the WordPress.org repository, and thousands of other free themes out there. And then we also have a lot of commercial or paid themes for WordPress. So you can go to hundreds of companies and basically say, okay, I want to pick your paid theme, and then you pay them a small amount of money usually, and you get a really awesome theme, and then you also get support for that theme. So if you have any problems with it, or if you find a bug, you can submit it to them, and they have an obligation to fix that. So the WordPress core software is actually very, very focused on kind of staying small. We kind of call it a publishing kernel. So it's very focused around the act of publishing, first of all, and the fact that it's a kernel, you can kind of get the idea that it's meant to be fast, small, and light, and then you kind of build on top of it using plugins and themes to make that website that you're looking for. And then you talk about scalability. The case study for scalability of WordPress is WordPress.com. WordPress.com has 20 million sites roughly, does about 2.5 billion with the B page views per month, and that's about 280, 300 million unique visitors. So it's proof that WordPress can scale. Then kind of to touch on a point that Paul made earlier about the upgradeability and maintainability, because actually this is a huge part of developing and choosing a platform, is that it's not something that's relatively easy to switch between one platform to the next. So whatever you choose is something that you're going to want to stay with for a long period of time. And WordPress makes upgrading really, really easy, although the versioning can be kind of confusing when compared with Drupal. So the first thing is that WordPress really focuses on the ease of upgrading and also maintaining backwards compatibility, meaning that plugins that work with version 2.8 will very, very, very likely work with versions 2.9, 3.0, 3.1. At some point, obviously, we have to remove that backwards compatibility for development purposes, but we try to maintain it as long as possible. It's usually over many, 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 many versions. Sometimes people say we might go a little overboard with maintaining back compat, but we feel that it's really important to not break plugins and themes when you upgrade your WordPress, because if you do, then it becomes really, really scary and costly and hard to upgrade. Our goal in the WordPress community is to actually have 3 major releases per year. We've slipped a little bit on that, but it is still a goal, and I feel confident that we will hit it probably this year and hopefully going forward. Our major releases don't increment the first number, so between 3.0, 3.1, and 3.2, those are major releases for us. So that's, I guess, when you look at Drupal, you're kind of talking Drupal 4, 5, 6, 7. Those 3.0, 3.1, 3.2 are our equivalents of that. We also have security releases or bug fix releases that increment the minor version number, so 3.0.1, 3.0.2. I went and took some screenshots from the Drupal website as far as how to upgrade Drupal. So looking at the major upgrade procedure, I don't know, can everyone read that? Anyway, it's kind of long and a little complicated. But for WordPress, to upgrade from WordPress 2.9 to 3.0 or 3.0 or 3.1, really all you need to do is click a button. And the button actually goes and upgrades your WordPress. And because we maintain that backwards compatibility, you shouldn't have any need. Obviously, if you're running a large site, you want to do some testing. You probably don't want to do it in your production site first, but you shouldn't have anything that breaks because the internal APIs that you're using for plugins and themes are maintained between versions.